In this video, we're going to discuss something we don't hear about very often: the dangers of political correctness. For decades, the media has hyped the benefits and virtues of behaving in a politically correct manner. But today, we are going to discuss the damaging effects of political correctness on each of us as individuals and on our society as a whole. Join me for this eye opening discussion from a wholly new angle as we seek and speak the truth about being politically correct. If you're a subscriber or a regular visitor to this channel, you may have noticed I have several retrospective videos that reference the 1980s. I grew up in the 80s, and this has afforded me an uncommon perspective in that I experienced what the world was like before the technological takeover of today. I was able to see what life was like before the onset of the internet, before the prevalence of smartphones, and before the popularization of political correctness. The 1980s was a very unique time. It wasn't a perfect decade by any means, but man, was it a load of fun.
The 80s were awesome!
In the 80s, life was happy, carefree, and upbeat. The decade was filled with neon and bright pastel colors as far as the eye could see. The music of the time was light, catchy, and just made you feel good. 80s movies were silly, charming, and playfully irreverent, and we watched them over and over again. We didn't take ourselves or life that seriously, and I can honestly say it was a very enjoyable time to be alive. As a quick side note, I love the 1980s so much that I recently launched a second YouTube channel dedicated solely to that decade. And if you'd like to subscribe, you can find a link to my new channel, Recreate the 80s, in this video's description box below. And then, when the 1990s rolled around, it was like everything irrevocably changed. The defining color trends turned from bright and expressive to drab and muted, with flat earth tones taking prominence. The music of the day shifted from being light and happy to being gloomy, negative, and in some cases outright violent. The new wave and pop bands that dominated the charts in the 80s were replaced with grunge groups and gangster rap in the 90s. We see this change noted in a 1997 award acceptance speech given by pop/R&B superstar who helped define the 1980s, George Michael.
As a regular visitor to this country during the past 15 years, personally I can't help but notice the darkness and negativity that has dominated American youth culture since the beginning of this decade. For the first time in human history, music became the mouthpiece for anger, fear, and racial division, driving young people apart, and even more tragically, offering no solutions, no hope.
In the freedom of speech that we enjoyed in the 80s, the ability to say whatever we wanted, whenever we wanted, began to fade as the concept of political correctness took center stage in 90s American culture. Suddenly, our lighthearted, happy-go-lucky way of being was replaced with a solemn, somber seriousness. Rather than joke around and laugh at ourselves and each other, we instead began to become upset and take offense at the words and actions of others. And suddenly, life wasn't so fun anymore. The idea of political correctness tells us that we must alter our words and actions so as not to arouse ire in the other party, to avoid any potential pain points as much as possible. Being a politically correct person says that we carry ourselves in such a way as to refrain from offending the sensibilities of another at all costs. When we speak in a politically correct manner, we remove from our vernacular terms which could be perceived as insensitive, inflammatory, or exclusionary. Sounds good, right? When viewed from the surface, the notion of behaving in a politically correct manner seems like a smart idea, offering a clever and seemingly sophisticated manner of maneuvering our way through social interactions with others. However, when we take a deeper look into this concept and consider the manner in which it ultimately impacts us, we discover the assignment of pain on the back end. This mental program contains a virus, so to speak, namely the inclusion of victimhood mentality. Political correctness dictates that we must identify with pain
Pain.
based upon the pains our cultural narrative has assigned to us. For example, the story of the United States is such that white America may carry guilt about past slavery. Black America may harbor anger over undue mistreatment. Females may become embittered about living in a primarily male dominated society, and so on. When another fails to acknowledge our pain category, the idea of political correctness demands that we take on pain in the form of becoming offended. When we become offended and react with anger, physiological changes immediately occur within the body. Our breathing quickens while body temperature, heart rate, and arterial tension begin to increase. The body constricts, releasing chemicals which encourage fatty deposits to accumulate in the heart and carotid arteries. If we respond with anger frequently or for long periods of time, some parts of the nervous system become highly activated, making it difficult for us to return to a relaxed state. With repetition, this weakens the ability of the immune system to stave off disease. Anger has also been linked to depression, an increase in stroke risk, and a decrease in overall lifespan. In addition to its negative impact on our mental and physical health, political correctness perpetuates the idea that others are responsible for our internal state, robbing us of our personal power. Self observation and self awareness reveal this notion to simply be untrue. Although we may not always exercise it, we have a choice in these moments we perceive to be offensive as to how we wish to respond. To help illustrate this point, the following short clip is taken from a popular television show which aired during the early 1980s called Bizarre. In this scene, the role of the lead karate instructor is being played by a Caucasian man who is pretending to be a man of Asian descent with a noticeably foreign accent. Now, today, most would condemn this comedy sketch as being racist and become offended at its lack of sensitivity. What I wish to draw your attention to is the reactions of the actual Asian men standing behind the karate instructor as he mimics their Asian accent.
Hi! 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 How are you? Welcome to Black Belt Karate School. What can I do for you?
Well, I'm interested in taking karate lessons.
Oh, let me explain one thing. We not even take your money if you consider taking karate as an offensive weapon. We only teach defense.
Oh, well, that's too bad. I was looking for some kind of way to pay back my wife. You see, I caught her cheating.
Oh, in that case, we show you a defensive way to beat the shit out of her. Hi! Hi!
May I say you have a very strange accent?
I know. I'm from Canada. Hi! Hey!
What should I do?
Okay, first, take off your clothes.
Why? So I can put on my robe?
Oh, no, so class can laugh at your body. I'm laughing already without clothes off.
All right, where can I change?
Oh, where'd you change? Hey, you change up. Oh, you change up. Hey, you change up. Hey, you, ha, ha.
If you watched closely, you likely noticed several of the Asian people standing behind the karate instructor laughing at his antics, despite what many today would perceive to be as insensitive mockery. In fact, one Asian gentleman broke character throughout the entire skit and could not contain his laughter. I share this pre-politically correct moment from the past to highlight the fact that the world is often what we make of it. If we choose to be happy, we'll likely see the humor or levity in a situation. If we choose to be unhappy, we'll likely see the offensiveness or negativity in a situation. There is an ancient Talmudic quote which states, "We don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are." In other words, we see the world through the lens of our previous experiences, our past traumas, our mental paradigms, our societal conditioning, and so forth. In this way, when we open our mouths to describe that which we see, in effect, what we are describing is ourselves. Politically correct ideology has unfortunately created a culture in which we have been conditioned to behave belligerently toward each other. Rather than bring us together to resolve our problems, it has caused us to be oriented toward combativeness. It is divisive by nature and often has us assume the worst in a situation rather than look for the best. Political correctness has converted our modern day society into a minefield as we all try to navigate our way through life without inadvertently causing somebody to explode. As someone that has seen the world both with and without the politically correct paradigm, it is my hope to convey to you that the world can be a much happier, far more enjoyable place than at present by simply releasing this destructive idea which does not serve us. Rather than install the harmful, divisive program of political correctness in our consciousness, there is a simple and perhaps obvious alternative solution available to us here, namely, to speak the truth from our hearts. If we feel that someone is being rude toward us, why not calmly ask them whether that was their intent? If we have an urge to say something that may hurt someone's feelings, what perspective does our heart offer us on the matter? In moments where we may have previously become offended, what if we exercised self care and maintained a positive internal state instead? Ultimately, the truth is, the more often we look for reasons to be happy, the less often we will see reasons to be upset. We don't need to have our thoughts and actions controlled by an outside set of rules in our interactions with others. We simply need to use our hearts.